7 days. That's how long they lasted. 7 days after the biggest, most watched, most anticipated wedding in the history of American celebrity. 7 days after the purple lights spelled JUST&T married across Madison Square Garden. 7 days after Paul McCartney sang something he hadn't sung in 62 years. 7 days after gold books and Dior gowns and the sweep-you-off-your-feet kiss, they walked back into the world. And here's the part that makes the whole thing perfect. They walked back in at someone else's wedding. Not a press conference. Not a red carpet. Not a carefully staged paparazzi walk or a statement-making public appearance designed to control the narrative. They walked back into the world by showing up for a friend. By getting on a plane and flying across the country and putting on a pink gown and a charcoal suit and going to the Ritz-Carlton in Laguna Niguel, California, to watch someone else say I do. Because that is who they are. That is what this couple, in 7 days of marriage, has already demonstrated about who they are going to be. This is the story of their first week as husband and wife. And it is more interesting, more layered, and more revealing than anyone predicted. Let's start the moment the wedding ends. Because what happened in the first hours after the ceremony at Madison Square Garden is a story in itself. It is just past 4 in the morning on July 4th, 2026. America's 250th birthday is beginning in the streets of New York City. Fireworks are being prepared. Tall ships sit in the harbor. Times Square is preparing for celebrations that will roll through the day. The city is alive with a different kind of festivity from what just happened inside Madison Square Garden. Inside the garden, the last guests have been gathering themselves. The Stevie Nicks performance has ended. The Paul McCartney encore, if there was one, is done. The 5-story glowing trees still stand in the transformed arena, but the dance floor is quieting, and the castle garden that Mark Seed built out of nothing is beginning to know that the night is over. And somewhere in that building, Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, who are now married, who signed whatever they signed and said whatever they said and exchanged whatever vows they read from gold books for 20 minutes each, are figuring out what comes next. What comes next, according to multiple sources, is very simple. And very intentional. They disappear. Not dramatically. Not with a statement. Not with a publicist explaining that the couple has requested privacy. They just go. They get into vehicles. They leave. And for the next several days, the world knows almost nothing. The Yellowstone Club. Big Sky, Montana. If you've never heard of the Yellowstone Club, that is probably intentional. It is one of the most exclusive private resort communities in the United States, a members-only ski and golf resort that sits in the mountains of Montana, accessible by private jet to Bozeman or Yellowstone Airport, and then by the kind of convoy of vehicles that makes it clear you are not going to be disturbed by anyone who isn't supposed to be there. Its members include some of the wealthiest people in the world. It is not a place you book on a travel website. Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce had been there before. Multiple times, according to sources. It was a place they knew. A place where they had already established that the kind of privacy they needed was available. A place where they could exist without cameras, without reporters, without anyone documenting every moment. And on the morning of July 4th, 2026, that is exactly where they went. But they didn't go alone. Because Jason Kelce and his wife Kylie were there too. Travis's brother and sister-in-law. The best man and his wife, joining the newlyweds for the beginning of what sources described as a mini-moon. Not the full honeymoon, that was being planned for later, for Greece and Europe and island hopping and the specific secret that only Taylor and Travis knew. But the first few days. The first breath after the biggest event of their lives. In the mountains of Montana, with the family. Think about that choice for a moment. Because it says something important. Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce did not spend the first days of their marriage alone. They spent them with family. With the brother who was the best man. With the sister-in-law who had, days earlier, lowered a car window at a reporter and deployed the most efficient refusal of a wedding question in recent media history. The same Kylie Kelce who told a reporter, in the pre-wedding period, "Nobody's ****ing telling you anything." That woman was their post-wedding Montana companion. Which is, honestly, the most perfect possible detail. The person who guarded the wedding secrecy most fiercely got to be there for the quietest, most private version of the celebration. Sources describe the mood at the Yellowstone Club as the couple determined to live in their newly married bubble. Not hiding. Not anxious. Just choosing. Choosing quiet. choosing each other, choosing the company of the specific people they wanted around them and nobody else. The 4th of July passed. America turned 250 years old. And in Big Sky, Montana, in an exclusive mountain retreat, Taylor and Travis Kelce ate dinner and probably took walks and definitely slept in and existed as two people who had just gotten married and were taking the first few days to feel what that means. No photos. No posts. Nothing. It lasted until Thursday. On July 9, 2026, Taylor Swift's private jet left Montana and landed at Bob Hope International Airport in Burbank, California. And here is where the story gets cinematic again. Because someone was watching. Someone is always watching, at that level of fame. And they caught the moment. Cameras were positioned near the private terminal. And what they captured was this: a group of people disembarking from a private jet, shielded by a cluster of black umbrellas. Not because it was raining. Not for weather reasons. The umbrellas were positioned to block the cameras, to create moving walls of coverage between the people walking down the air stairs and the lenses pointed at them. Multiple black umbrellas. Moving in careful formation. A convoy of vehicles waiting nearby on the tarmac. Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce were visible for exactly as long as it took to walk from the jet door to the waiting cars. Maybe less. The umbrellas did their job. The convoy of vehicles rolled away, heading, according to reports, toward Taylor's Beverly Hills home, approximately 15 miles from the airport. They were in California. And the internet, which had been surviving on scraps and speculation and deleted tweets from AMC CEOs and car window interviews with ants, suddenly had a fact. A location. A direction. Something was about to happen. And it was, of all the glorious things, another wedding. Juju Smith-Schuster. If you know the NFL, you know the name. He's a wide receiver. A player Travis Kelce had been teammates with on the Kansas City Chiefs before Smith-Schuster signed with the New York Giants in June 2026. He's one of those players who exists as both a football person and a cultural personality. Known for his age difference from Travis when they played together, known for his personality and his joy, known as someone who is genuinely beloved by his teammates. And on July 10, 2026, exactly 7 days after Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce got married at Madison Square Garden, Juju Smith-Schuster was marrying Laura Kruk at the Ritz-Carlton, Laguna Niguel, in Orange County, California. And Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift were on the guest list. Now here is the detail that makes this whole thing even more beautiful, in that specifically layered way that Taylor Swift's life tends to be layered. Juju Smith-Schuster and Laura Kruk had been among the 1,000 guests at Taylor and Travis's wedding the week before. They had been there. Inside the secret garden. At Madison Square Garden. They had signed the NDAs and surrendered their phones and watched Adam Sandler officiate and heard Paul McCartney sing. And now, 7 days later, Taylor and Travis were showing up to return the favor. Juju and Laura at Taylor and Travis's wedding. Taylor and Travis at Juju and Laura's wedding. 1 week apart. 2 weddings. A perfect, small, human exchange of celebration between people who love each other. You could not write this more beautifully than it actually happened. The Ritz-Carlton, Laguna Niguel is one of the most celebrated resort properties on the California coast. It sits on a bluff overlooking the Pacific Ocean in Orange County, Dana Point, specifically, and it is the kind of place that makes you feel like the world is arranged correctly, at least for the duration of a weekend. The ocean stretches out below. The grounds are manicured to within an inch of perfection. It has hosted the kind of events that people remember for decades. And on July 10, 2026, Taylor Swift walked into it wearing pink. Specifically, Marcarian's Layla floral brocade gown. A strapless dress in a blush tone, layered with a deep pink floral pattern, the fabric rich and textured in a way that photographs as something between romantic and regal. The design features a corset bodice that gives way to a pleating cascade, fabric flowing and moving with a kind of deliberate elegance that makes every entrance feel considered. The retail price, $4,115. For a woman who just got married in a custom Christian Dior haute couture gown, this is approximately the equivalent of wearing something off a department store rack. She is doing it deliberately. She is showing up as a guest, not as the star of the show. Her hair was in a low bun. Her signature bangs swept to one side. The red lipstick was in place. Because the red lipstick is always in place, it is as permanent a feature of Taylor Swift's public presentation as the music itself. And she was wearing sunglasses, The kind that say I am here to celebrate a friend, not to be photographed, even though I know I will be photographed. Travis Kelce, beside her, wore a charcoal suit. Some descriptions say black and white, some say gray. The lighting at a California outdoor venue in July creates its own interpretive challenges. What everyone agrees on, he was smiling. All smiles, as multiple outlets put it. The man who had wept during the vows at his own wedding 1 week earlier was grinning at someone else's. And they were holding hands. That is the detail that landed first in every photo, every caption, every social media post. Hand in hand. Walking into the Ritz-Carlton, Laguna Niguel, on July 10, 2026, as husband and wife. The first time cameras had caught them together since the wedding. Not in Dior. Not with umbrellas creating a moving shield. Not protected by a security perimeter or a street closure or 135 NYPD officers. Just walking in. Together. Holding hands. Patrick Mahomes and Brittany Mahomes were there too. The Chiefs quarterback and his wife, who had been at the MSG wedding the week before, who are among Travis and Taylor's closest friends, who have been part of this story almost since the beginning. There is a photo circulating of all four of them together, Taylor and Travis, Patrick and Brittany, along with Juju and Laura, gathered in conversation during the celebration. Two couples who were at each other's weddings within 7 days of each other. Friends who share the specific intimacy of having witnessed each other's most important moments. Taylor sipped champagne. She greeted other guests with warm handshakes. She was present. Not performing presence, not managing an appearance, just being at a wedding. Celebrating. Being a friend to a friend who had been a friend to her. Now there is a detail from this day that has been reported in the coverage and deserves its own spotlight. Because it is both funny and humanizing in a way that perfectly captures the kind of thing that happens when you bring 1,000 people together for a wedding. Laura Kruk, the woman marrying Juju Smith-Schuster on July 10th, the woman who attended Taylor and Travis's wedding the week before, showed up to Taylor and Travis's wedding wearing the same dress as Abigail Anderson. Abigail Anderson. Taylor's childhood best friend. The maid of honor. The girl from Tennessee who has known Taylor since before any of this existed, who is literally named in the song 15, who was Taylor's most important person at the altar at MSG. Abigail Anderson and Laura Kruk wore the same dress. At the same wedding. Now, nobody seems to know whether this was caught in the moment, whether the two women acknowledged it, whether anyone flagged it. But the fact of it is wonderfully ordinary. The most spectacularly produced wedding in modern American history. The custom Dior gowns and the 5-story trees and Paul McCartney and the 20-minute vows from gold books, and somewhere in the crowd, two women are in the same dress. That happens at every wedding. Every single one. The dress collision is a universal wedding experience. It happens at Madison Square Garden with a guest list full of famous people the same way it happens at a reception hall in suburban Ohio with 45 people. The laws of weddings apply to everyone. Taylor Swift's wedding had a dress collision. And now Laura Kruk, who experienced that dress collision, was getting married a week later. And Taylor and Travis were there. There is something deeply, quietly wonderful about the circularity of this week. Let's also talk about something that happened while Taylor and Travis were in Montana, before the California trip, before Juju's wedding. Something small and perfect that slipped into the coverage almost without notice. Jason Kelce went to the American Century Championship. This is a celebrity golf tournament held every year in State Line, Nevada, at Lake Tahoe, a beloved annual event where athletes and entertainers play golf and generally have an excellent time. Jason was there on July 9th, and a fan approached him. And the fan asked about the wedding. Jason Kelce, who had been the best man 1 week earlier, who had watched his brother marry Taylor Swift in a secret garden inside Madison Square Garden, who had seen the gold books and the Dior gowns and Paul McCartney and the sweep you off your feet kiss, was asked by a fan how the wedding was. And he said, "It was a good time." A good time. 4 syllables. The most understated possible assessment of the most extravagant wedding in recent American history, delivered by a man who was there. Jason Kelce, who has never been known for withholding personality or emotion, who once wore a dog mask to the Super Bowl parade and delivered a speech that made Philadelphia cry, describing his brother's wedding as a good time. This is either the most disciplined privacy protection in the history of celebrity adjacency, or it is the most perfect distillation of Jason Kelce's entire personality. Probably both. Also on July 9th, the same day Jason was at the golf tournament, the same day Taylor's jet landed in Burbank, the New York City mayor made an announcement about the wedding that had been quiet until now. Mayor Zoran Mamdani, speaking publicly about the costs associated with the MSG wedding, confirmed that Taylor Swift paid over $160,000 in permit costs for the event. The permits covered the street closures, the police protection, the deployment of the 135 NYPD officers plus MTA and Amtrak police, and the logistical coordination that the city's government had to provide for a private event of that scale. $160,000 to throw a private party. In permit costs alone. Before a single dollar went to flowers or catering or custom Dior gowns or chandeliers lowered from arena ceilings. And Taylor paid it. Without complaint. Without a press release about the cost. Without using it as a piece of personal branding. It was just the cost of the thing, and it was paid, and the mayor confirmed it, and it became a news item for about 45 minutes before being absorbed into the general ocean of wedding coverage. Let's talk about the photos. Because there is a question hovering over everything since July 3rd, and that question is, when do we get to see them? The wedding happened. The ceremony was real. The Dior gowns were real. The gold books and Paul McCartney and the five-story trees were real. And yet, the world has no official photos. No images from inside. Nothing from Taylor and Travis themselves. No first look, no professional photographer's release, no curated Instagram carousel. Just the details from the people who were there. The GMA hosts on air the morning after. The aunt in the car window. The deleted CEO post. The accounts from people who caught small glimpses. The trainer's photo showing the orange peach carpet and the couple at an entrance, Taylor holding Travis's hand. And now, the photos from Juju's wedding, which are the first actual photographs of Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce as a married couple that the world has seen. Pink dress and charcoal suit. Sunglasses and champagne. Hand in hand at the Ritz-Carlton. But the wedding photos themselves? The official ones? The Kelce brothers' Instagram account confirmed it. Taylor plans to share the first photos of the wedding on her personal Instagram, on her own time. On her own time. Those 4 words are doing an enormous amount of work. They are a statement of intent. They are a reaffirmation of control, not controlling in the anxious sense, but controlling in the sense of this belongs to us and we will share it when we choose to share it and not a moment before. They are the same principle that governed the watermarked invitations and the NDAs and the no-phone policy and the black umbrellas at the Burbank airport. This is Taylor Swift's wedding. She will release the photos when Taylor Swift is ready to release the photos. And the world will wait. Because what else can it do? And because, honestly, the anticipation is its own kind of pleasure. The question of what Taylor Swift looked like in her Dior gown, walking toward Travis in his white tuxedo, in a garden built inside Madison Square Garden, that question has been living in people's heads since July 3rd, and it will continue to live there until she decides to answer it. She will answer it. She always does. On her terms, in her own format, with her own framing. She will post what she wants to post, and it will break the internet, and the image will become iconic, and people will analyze every detail of it for years. But not yet. Right now, what we have is a woman in a pink Marcarian gown holding her husband's hand at someone else's wedding. And honestly, that might be the most important image anyway. Because it answers the question that every public love story eventually has to answer. Not the question of the ceremony. Not the question of the vows or the dress or the guest list or the cost of the flowers. The other question. The practical, human, ordinary question. What comes after? After the spectacle. After the cameras outside and the billboard saying JUST&T married and the Empire State Building in blue and the Paul McCartney surprise and the gold books and the giddy and the sweep you off your feet kiss. What actually happens next? You go to Montana with your brother-in-law and his wife, and you stay at a mountain resort, and you live in your newly married bubble for a few days. And then you get on a plane shielded by black umbrellas and fly to California. And then you put on a $4,000 pink dress, and your husband wears a charcoal suit, and you hold his hand, and you go to a friend's wedding. That is what comes after. Not a documentary announcement. Not an album trailer. Not a stadium tour date drop or a record label negotiation or a chart position. You go to Montana. You get on a plane. You celebrate your friend's marriage 1 week after celebrating your own. You be a person. And they are being people. Right now, today, in California at a Ritz-Carlton, they are just people at a wedding. Taylor Swift in pink and Travis Kelce smiling and Patrick Mahomes nearby and champagne being sipped and warm handshakes given and Juju Smith-Schuster getting married in the same week that the people who came to his wedding got married themselves. Now let's talk about what's coming. Because this story is not over. It is, if anything, just beginning its most interesting chapter. Travis Kelce has to report to Kansas City Chiefs training camp on July 28th. That is 17 days from today. He made the decision to return for a 14th NFL season, which is itself remarkable. At 36 years old, after winning 3 Super Bowls and cementing his status as the greatest tight end in NFL history, he is coming back for more. He said he wasn't done. The ring on his finger doesn't change the fact that there is still football to play and there are still championships to win, and Travis Kelce is not a person who walks away from a thing until he has decided it is finished. So the honeymoon has a deadline. July 28th. Whatever they do between now and then, the Greece island hopping that sources have described, the European adventure, the various locations that have been mentioned in reports, it all has to happen in the next 2.5 weeks. Which means right now, after Juju's wedding, after the California detour, they are heading back toward the honeymoon that was always the plan. The proper one. The 3 weeks, or whatever it turns out to be. The Mediterranean. The places that have not been photographed yet, that may never be photographed if the black umbrellas and private jet protocols hold. And then Travis goes to training camp. In pads and a helmet. Running routes on a practice field in St. Joseph, Missouri. Preparing for another season. And Taylor, she will be doing whatever Taylor Swift does next. Which nobody knows, which is the most exciting possible situation. Her 12th album, The Life of a Showgirl, is still out in the world. The Eras tour has ended. She is, for the first time in years, not committed to a major touring or promotional schedule. She is a married woman with a career and a life, and whatever comes next is being assembled behind closed doors in a way that no one outside her innermost circle will know about until she decides it's time. She will decide. She always decides. And then she will share it. On her own time. But here is what this week has already told us. What 7 days as a married couple, caught by the world in the most accidental and human ways. Montana spotted by sources, Burbank airport umbrellas on camera, pink gown and charcoal suit at the Ritz-Carlton. What those 7 days have revealed about who Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce are going to be as a married couple. They are going to be people who go to weddings. Who show up for friends. Who fly across the country 1 week after their own impossibly spectacular ceremony to sit in someone else's chairs and drink someone else's champagne and celebrate something that is not about them. They are going to be people who take their brother and sister-in-law on the first days of the honeymoon. Who go to mountain resorts they've already been to before because those places have given them privacy and peace and they know what works. Who get on planes behind black umbrellas not because they are afraid of cameras but because they are protecting something that matters. They are going to be people who hold hands walking into a venue. Who smile all day. Who have a red lipstick in place as a constant. In a pink dress that costs $4,000 and feels like coming down a couple of notches from Dior because it's someone else's day and that is the appropriate move. They are going to be the couple who started with a bracelet and a podcast and a first date where football was explained as violent chess, and who arrived at Madison Square Garden and gold books and Paul McCartney singing something he hadn't sung in 62 years, and then walked right back out into the world, 7 days later, holding hands at someone else's wedding. The English teacher and the gym teacher. Married. Hand in hand. At a Ritz-Carlton in Orange County. 1 week in. This is the beginning. The real one. Not the ceremony. Not the spectacular production. Not the lights saying JUST&T married or the Empire State Building going blue. This is the beginning. A pink dress. A charcoal suit. A friend getting married. A hand held. And everything that comes after. Stay with us. The story keeps going. And let me go back for a moment to something I want to make sure lands fully. The Yellowstone Club. Because the choice of Montana is not random. It is not the first option you might think of for a celebrity honeymoon. The Mediterranean exists. The Maldives exist. Private islands around the world are available at whatever cost you care to name. Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce could have gone anywhere. They went to Big Sky, Montana. They went to a place where the cellular signal is limited and the population is sparse and the mountains are enormous and the world feels, in the most physical way possible, very far away from everything. The Yellowstone Club sits at an elevation of over 7,000 feet in the Rocky Mountains. The sky there is not the same sky you see from New York City. It is not a sky you feel watched by. It is the kind of sky that reminds a person how small they are, and how that smallness is, in the right context, a relief. For two people who have lived their entire adult lives being watched, being documented, being tracked at airports and stadiums and restaurants, the experience of being small in a landscape that dwarfs you must be deeply restorative. Not just private. Restorative. Montana does something to a person. It recalibrates the scale of things. It makes the headlines feel very far away. And they had been there before. Multiple times. This was not a new destination discovered for the honeymoon. This was a place they already knew, a place that had already given them what they needed on previous visits. The choice of the Yellowstone Club was an act of returning to something that works. There is a version of this couple that, in the first week of their marriage, would have posted from every location. Every sunset. Every candid moment of the two of them being happy. The platform for that content exists. The audience for it is literally the largest in the world. If Taylor Swift posted a single photograph of herself and Travis Kelce from a Montana mountain range, it would receive more engagement in a day than most institutions generate in a decade. She didn't post anything. Not a story. Not a subtle hint. Not an Easter egg buried in a location tag. Nothing. The honeymoon, or the mini-moon, as sources described it, was simply private. A private experience, lived by private people, inside the enormous mountain club that shielded them from the world they both love and need to occasionally escape. Now let me tell you something about the relationship between Travis Kelce and Juju Smith-Schuster that makes the July 10th appearance even more meaningful. Juju Smith-Schuster played for the Kansas City Chiefs for 2 seasons, the 2023 and 2024 seasons, which happens to be exactly the period during which Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift's relationship was developing publicly and privately. Juju was there. He was a teammate during the Super Bowl runs, during the Eras Tour concerts Travis attended, during the games where Taylor was in the suite and the entire country was watching. These aren't people who know each other from a professional obligation that ended years ago. Juju Smith-Schuster was in Travis Kelce's life during the most significant personal transformation of Kelce's public story. He witnessed, from a locker room's distance, the relationship that became the wedding that Juju attended last week. And now he was getting married. And Travis and Taylor were there. That is friendship that earned the attendance. That is the kind of relationship where you get on a plane at the start of your honeymoon and fly to California because this person was there when it mattered and now it is their turn and you are going to show up. The Ritz-Carlton, Laguna Niguel is a specific choice of venue that tells you something about Juju and Laura's taste and priorities. It is not a destination designed to impress with its name alone, though the name is impressive enough. It is a destination designed for a wedding that feels luxurious but personal. The Pacific Ocean is right there. The property has enough outdoor space to feel like the celebration is happening in nature even though every comfort is available. It is California elegance, warm and golden and a little effortless in the way that Southern California events tend to be. And Taylor Swift walked into it in a pink Marcarian gown and turned, as she tends to do, the ambient visual temperature of the entire venue up about 20 degrees without meaning to. The Marcarian brand is worth noting. Marcarian is an American fashion house founded by Alexandra O'Neill, based in New York City. It is a label that occupies a particular space in fashion, romantic without being precious, formal without being stiff, the kind of dressing that feels appropriate for a day when you want to look wonderful without making the whole occasion about the looking. At $4,115 retail, the Layla gown is expensive by any normal standard and modest by Taylor Swift's standard. She chose it because it was right for the day. Not for the cameras. Not for a fashion moment. For a friend's wedding in July in California, where the floral print would feel like the season itself, where the pink would give her joy without demanding attention, where the strapless silhouette would be cool in the heat. She dressed like a guest, not like a celebrity. And yet, there it is. The red lipstick. Always the red lipstick. As inevitable as a fact of nature. Taylor Swift does not appear in public without the red lipstick in the same way the sun does not rise in the west. It is a constant. It is her red lip classic thing, as her own song describes it, and no occasion or dress code or casual context has ever changed it. Travis Kelce, for his part, wore the suit with the ease of a man who has worn many suits and is comfortable in all of them. He has spent years being photographed in formal contexts, awards shows and galas and post-game press conferences, and the kinds of events that a very famous professional athlete attends throughout a career. He knows how to wear a suit. He wore it here the way he does everything, which is with the uncomplicated confidence of a person who is not particularly self-conscious and has found no reason to start being so. Large sunglasses on both of them. A choice that communicates something. We know you can see us, we know the cameras are here, and we are making peace with that by shielding our eyes and turning our attention inward, toward each other, toward the celebration in front of us. At one point during the event, Taylor was photographed sipping champagne and greeting guests with handshakes. This specific image, the champagne flute, the handshake, the warm smile, is the image of a person at a wedding doing what people do at weddings. Greeting. Celebrating. Being glad to be there and showing it in the small ordinary ways that define real attendance versus performative presence. She was glad to be there. You can see it. And then there is the photos situation. Because the day after Juju's wedding, today, July 11th, there is still no official photo from Taylor and Travis's own wedding. The world has been waiting 8 days now. 8 days of extraordinary patience for a public that is accustomed to receiving content almost immediately. 8 days since the most watched celebrity wedding in recent memory, and not a single official image. And what we know is this: it is coming. On her terms. On her time. The confirmation came from the Kelce brothers' shared social media presence, their New Heights account, which has become something of an informal communications channel for the family, which confirmed that Taylor intends to share the first photos on her personal Instagram. On her personal Instagram. Not through a magazine. Not through an official press release with photo credits. Her personal Instagram. The same account that posted the engagement announcement last August with the caption, "Your English teacher and your gym teacher are getting married." The same account that has always been the most direct line between Taylor Swift and the world, unmediated, in her own framing, with her own timing. The wedding photos, when they arrive, will land on Instagram. They will be posted when she is ready. And they will, without question, become some of the most viewed images in the history of the platform. But she is not ready yet. And so we wait. And while we wait, we have the pink Marcarian gown and the hand held at the Ritz-Carlton and the champagne sipped in California sunshine. About what comes next. About the timeline that everyone is watching. The proper honeymoon is reportedly a European affair. Specifically, Greece has been the location mentioned most consistently in the reports. Island hopping, the kind of trip through the Aegean that is both specific enough to be identifiable and fluid enough to be impossible to track precisely. Which islands? The sources say Greece. The itinerary, beyond that, belongs only to them. Reports have also mentioned other European destinations beyond Greece. The honeymoon, as described, seems designed to be expansive and mobile, moving between places rather than staying put, which makes it harder to photograph and easier to experience. You cannot camp outside a hotel in one location if the couple moves every few days. The mobility is its own privacy. But the mobility has a wall. July 28th. Kansas City Chiefs training camp begins. And Travis Kelce, who is 36 years old and returning for his 14th NFL season, has to be there. Travis Kelce announced his return for another season with the characteristic decisiveness that defines everything he does. He is not done. 3 Super Bowl rings do not constitute completion for a person like him. The game is still the thing. The challenge is still the thing. And the relationship that is now a marriage has not changed his relationship with football. It has, if anything, given him more to celebrate when the Chiefs win and more to return home to at the end of every season. He will be at training camp on July 28th, in pads and a helmet in St. Joseph, Missouri, getting ready for a season that will be watched, as all recent Chiefs seasons have been watched, by the enormous cross-demographic audience that Taylor Swift's presence in football culture created. And Taylor... What does Taylor Swift do in a year without a major tour, without a promotional schedule built around an album release, without the particular engine of the Eras tour giving shape to every month? Nobody knows. And that is the most exciting possible answer. She has her music. She has her new marriage. She has the re-recorded albums that she has been releasing over the years to reclaim her masters. She has whatever creative work is happening behind the closed doors of the Beverly Hills home the convoy drove to from Burbank Airport on Thursday. She has a life. And she is choosing to live it. In Montana at a private club. In California at a friend's wedding. In Greece, soon, moving between islands on a honeymoon that the world will only partially see. And then in whatever comes after that, the next album, the next era, the next chapter of a story that has now taken its most permanent form. Husband. Wife. The English teacher and the gym teacher. The bracelet that never reached her. The podcast where he put his feelings in public because there was no other path. The first game in Kansas City. The violent chess first date. The Wembley phone call and the vitamin drip. The garden in Leawood. The gold books and the Dior and so it's gonna be forever. And now this. A week later. Pink dress and charcoal suit. California sunshine. A friend's wedding. A hand held. This is the most ordinary beginning to the most extraordinary love story of its era. And ordinary is exactly right. Because underneath every spectacular thing that has happened, the Super Bowls and the Eras Tour and the MSG ceremony and the Paul McCartney first performance in 62 years, there are two people who chose each other. Who keep choosing each other. Who will fly across the country a week into their honeymoon to celebrate a friend getting married because that is the kind of people they are and that is the kind of marriage they have decided to build. The photos will come. The honeymoon stories will eventually surface. The training camp season will begin and the cameras will follow Travis onto the practice field and Taylor will be somewhere being Taylor Swift in ways the world will discover when she is ready to share them. But right now, today, July 11th, 2026, the world has this. A newlywed couple, 7 days in, holding hands at the Ritz-Carlton. Stay close. Because this story has barely started.